What if, with no expectations, this is the year that the Sixers actually make it work? I'm looking at this Sixers team, and I'm watching them play in the preseason a little bit, and seeing Joel Embiid return and look really good. He's in great shape, like phenomenal shape. And I'm looking at this roster, I'm looking at the addition of VJ Edgecombe, the return of Jared McCain, the ability to retain Quentin Grimes for at least one more year. And I'm looking at this team, they're pretty healthy, and they're like relatively deep, and I'm all of a sudden pretty interested. I'm gonna be totally honest, because Paul George was the worst he's ever been last season. But what if he's a little better this year? What if Joel Embiid were to actually maybe stay healthy? What if Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid can get back to that elite two-man game that made them one of the best duos in the league not very long ago? What if Quentin Grimes continues to be one of the best 3-and-D wings in the game and continues to show that elite level offensive ability when needed? Because there are going to be nights Joel Embiid isn't going to play. If I was the Sixers, I wouldn't play him in back-to-backs. I don't care how healthy he looks at different points in the year. I'm not playing him in back-to-backs. I'm not taking the risk. You know what I mean? I want Embiid missing 15 games this season. I want Embiid missing 20 games this season, but I want him missing those games not because of injury, but in order to protect his body if I'm a Sixers fan. That being said, this is a roster all of a sudden where there's enough pieces in place where I could see this team, if healthy, being a real threat. And I think all of a sudden they're kind of overlooked in the East because last year was such a disaster and Embiid can't stay healthy and hasn't been able to for a while now. But I almost think people are forgetting how great Joel Embiid is when he's healthy. And I think people are not giving this roster enough credit. I liked Justin Edwards last season. He's a guy who can be a contributor. Jared McCain was running away, I feel like, with Rookie of the Year until he got injured. Kelly Oubre is still a decent wing. Now, I'm not sure he's a huge contributor. I don't know how much of a role I want him to have. I kind of wish, in all honesty, they had brought back Gershon Yabusele as well. But I look at this team and I go, they're like pretty good. They're an interesting team. They're a very interesting team. And in the preseason, there's been some really positive things to look at. Now, Quentin Grimes only played one game, but 22 points on really high level efficiency, continuing what he did last year, which was spectacular. I mean, we could look at the 24-25 Sixers, and there was a lot of not positives about this team. But one of the positives was the fact that Quentin Grimes was 47% from the field, 37% from three in 28 games, 25 starts with the Sixers, and had a lot of big performances, averaged 22 a game. That's a different level of Quentin Grimes than we've ever seen at any point in his career. He was great with the Mavs as well last year, but when he got traded to the Sixers, took it to a different level. And I mean, I think he's one of the more valuable wing role players in basketball right now. He's a guy who can really, I think, elevate his game on a night-to-night basis if needed into a bigger offensive role, and then also has the ability to be just an incredibly quality role player as well if needed. Tyrese Maxey was not super efficient last year. I think there was a lot more put on his plate than he really is quite ready for. He's not a number one option, and I don't know if he'll ever be a number one option for an actually high-level team, but he doesn't need to be if Joel Embiid is healthy. Embiid had such a down year last year, was only 44% from the field, 30% from three. I mean, it was bad. It was a bad year for Joel Embiid, and he only played, 19 games, had averaged 24 points a game. It was not Joel Embiid-like. He was not healthy. It was clear he was not healthy. But this year, he looks pretty healthy. He's in good shape. I'll give him that. I will say, watching him play on Friday night, I think, was it Friday or Saturday night they played against the Timberwolves? Either way, I watched part of that game. He looks really, really healthy. It's Friday night, I believe. But he looks really, really pretty good, pretty healthy. His passing is always something that I think is a little underappreciated about him as a player, and he's gotten I feel like as he's gotten older, he's gotten more comfortable with that. And I think people also forget that it was literally it wasn't that long ago when he was the MVP favorite in 23-24 until he got hurt after winning MVP the year before. I mean, it is not long ago that Joel Embiid was considered one of the 2 or 3 best players in the entire sport. And last year was such a disaster injury-wise, and to be fair, he's missed a lot of games. The year before, I forget what the injury was that ended his season, but it was pretty significant in 23-24. I don't know, it didn't end his season. He came back in the playoffs, and he was pretty injured. He was playing through it anyway, and I remember it being a struggle against the Knicks, but he had some big games anyway and stuff. It was a weird year, but he was dominant prior to injury in 23-24. In 22-23, I actually thought he deserved to win MVP. I know there's a lot of revisionist history now. Oh, Jokic should have won that MVP, and maybe you can certainly make the argument Jokic should have won that MVP. But I thought Embiid was as deserving as anyone that year to win the MVP award. It was not long ago that this is one of the best 3 to 4 ballot players in the world. Is it possible he returns to something close to that level this year? He's only 31. He looks like he's in really good shape. Again, Do I have full confidence in his ability to stay healthy? Absolutely not. But if he were to stay semi-decently healthy for the first time in a couple of years, this team has all the pieces around him to be really, really good. Now, Paul George had a pretty disastrous year, 43% from the field, 36% from three, was not nearly as efficient offensively as he's been throughout his career, nor did he play on as high volume as he has in previous points of his career. But again, many of those games, he was expected to be either a second or a first option for the Sixers team. Early in his career, I feel like in Oklahoma City, in Indiana, even at times in LA, he was capable of being that number one option. I don't think at this point in his career, at how old is he now? How old is Paul George? 35 years old. He's not a number one option. But I don't think I have a problem with him being your third or fourth option on a night-to-night basis. Yes, they're paying him a lot of money. I understand he's overpaid for sure for the role that he's going to play, but I am not ready to write off Paul George as a useful NBA player yet. I'm just not ready to close the book on Paul George being a quality NBA player. With the way that players have been able to extend their career and the fact that, look, last year was bad, but circumstances, I think, played a big part in that. I don't see why it's not completely possible for him to have a bounce back year, have his efficiency go back up a little bit, in a smaller role, be able to focus a little more on the defensive end of the court and be a really, really helpful player for this team. I do wonder about the fit of the VJ Edgecombe, Jared McCain, Tyrese Maxey group. That team, I don't feel like you can really play all three of those guys together at this point. I mean, maybe you kind of can, because I actually really like VJ Edgecombe. He was freaking awesome in college at Baylor. I grew up a Baylor fan. My cousin played basketball at Baylor, so I've always had an interest in Baylor college basketball. Not as much now as I used to, but I watched him play a decent amount at Baylor. I will say, he reminds me, and this may sound a little blasphemous, he has some Dwayne Wade to him. The quick twitch athleticism that he's got is like, it's unlike very few players in basketball. It's Thompson Twins-esque in a lot of ways. He is a freak physically. He's got that Anthony Edwards, Thompson Twins twitch and bounce and burst that is really, really impressive stuff. I think the ceiling for him as a player is extremely high if he stays healthy, number one, and develops that three-point shot. The three-point shot will be the thing that kind of make or breaks how valuable he can be, especially this early in his career as a rookie. But I would not be shocked to see him be one of the better rookies in basketball again this year. The athleticism will play, the defense will play, and the shooting will hopefully be good enough to play as well. Now, the fit with him, 6'2" Maxey and 6'3" McCain, I wonder if those three guys are really going to play a lot together. It was a pretty small sample size, to be fair, for Jared McCain last year, only 23 games, but I feel like he did make a pretty significant imprint in those 23 games last year. I mean, he was, 46%, 38% from three, and had some really big assist games as well. I mean, what was his assist per game? He only averaged 2.6 assists per game, but he did have a couple of big assist games as well. He's a little small to not really be a true point guard, and while he was really, really good, I think, last year, I wonder where the fit is going to be with him and Tyrese and VJ Edgecombe. How is that going to work? Is he more of a bench point guard? Is he a point guard at all, really? You know what I mean? Like, can he play more of that point guard role this year? Because I don't think Kyle Lowry is the answer at point guard at this point in their career. I kind of think they should have kept just Jared Butler. Jared Butler showed some real signs last year and towards the end of the season, and they let him leave in the offseason instead of re-signing him. I almost would have liked to keep him around, to be totally honest, because he's a point guard. He's not going to turn the ball over a ton. Legitimate, very, very quality facilitator. Another Baylor guy, by the way. I watched Jared Butler a lot at Baylor because my cousin was playing at Baylor at the time. I'm a big fan of Jared Butler, but I think they should have maybe considered keeping a guy like him. I don't know how much value guys like Andre Drummond, Eric Gordon, and Kyle Lowry, even Kelly Oubre, how much value are those guys providing to this roster at this point in their career? I would like to see a couple of more different pieces, like maybe a Dembona's going to play a bigger role this year. I don't really know. But I'd like to see some of the youth be valuable. Janai Broome was awesome in college. I'm not convinced he is physically an NBA player. It's one of those things where is he going to be a Drew Timme type guy where he was awesome in college, but just doesn't have the physical tools to really be great in the NBA? Possible. I don't know. Maybe he's the backup center, though. I think you at least give him a chance with how great he was in college. That's my biggest concern with this team, is the amount of old guys in this team that I'm not really sure are true contributors, and also the fit of a couple of their young guys is a little weird. That's my concern, and obviously injuries is going to be a huge concern with this team because Embiid getting hurt will derail the entire year if that happens. But if he's healthy, big if, I know. If he is, this 76ers team has the tools to be one of the best teams in the East. And in a Weekend East. I like the Cavs, but there's some point of attack defense questions there, in my opinion, even with the addition of Lonzo Ball, who I really like as an addition. I'll probably talk about them soon. I like the Hawks. I like the Magic. There are other teams in the East. The Knicks are obviously going to be a huge threat still. The East is not going to be the easiest. It's not going to be free, but it's not nearly as tough as the West either at the same time. If this Sixers team can stay healthy and find their groove, there is no reason that they can't be one of the best teams in the East, and there's no reason they couldn't make it out of the East. I could completely see this team making the finals. I'm not gonna predict that at this point, but if they're healthy, it's absolutely possible. That's all I'm gonna say. That being said, that's gonna do it for the video. I hope y'all did enjoy. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more NBA content very, very soon. I appreciate y'all. Peace.